The Third Testament, Revelations of Jesus Christ. Chapter 6, The Third Testament and the Great Book of Life. The Book of Life, the truth and wisdom of God. Thus saith the Lord. The book of my word is the book of divine and true love. In it you will find the unchangeable truth. Turn to it and you will find the wisdom that will help you to evolve and attain peace in eternity. He will be at fault who will alter or modifies its essence and will greatly infringe my law, who should take or add a single word which will be in disagreement with my perfect doctrine. Safeguard this word with its original purity, for it is the most beautiful heritage that I will bequeath to man. Record my teaching and allow it to be known to your brethren. Keep it faithfully, because you are responsible for that heritage. Tomorrow, man will find in it the essence of my revelation, which will guide them along the path of truth with the light of its teachings. From parents to children, these writings will be passed on as a spring of living water, whose current will flow endlessly and will go from heart to heart. Study in the great book of life, the book of spirituality, that which will explain the divine revelations which you have received throughout the ages. Did I not promise you that all knowledge would be restored to its original truth? Well, this is the time which was announced to you. Truly, I say to you that he who meditates and analyzes the teachings of my book with a true desire to elevate his knowledge will acquire the light for his spirit, and he will feel me nearer to him. The myths of yesterday and those of today will fall. All that is mediocre and false will crumble, for the moment will come in which you will no longer be nourished by imperfections, and the spirit will arise in search of the truth, so that this will serve as its only sustenance. In these teachings, mankind will find the essence of my revelations, which up to now have not been comprehended due to your lack of spirituality. Since ancient times I have entrusted it to you through my envoys, my emissaries, my interpreters, and you have only used it to create myths and traditions. Meditate and study this lesson with respect and love if you wish to avoid centuries of confusion and bitterness. But remember that you will not fulfill your mission if you are satisfied with possessing the book only. No, it should awaken and teach you if you truly desire to become my disciple. Indoctrinate with examples, with the love and charity that I have taught you. The book of my teachings has been formed from the lessons that in this time I have dictated to you through human understanding. With this book, which humanity will come to recognize as the Third Testament, you will defend my divine cause. Humanity recognizes only the law of the first era and what is written in the First and Second Testaments, but the Third shall come to unify and correct that which man have altered through lack of readiness and understanding. Humanity must study my message, so that penetrating to the depth of each word it encounters one single ideal, one single truth, one single light that shall guide them to spirituality. I come to reveal to you that which men of science could not teach you, because they do not know it. They have slept in their earthly greatness and have not risen to me in search of my wisdom. The hearts of the shepherds who in different sects and religions should be teaching the spiritual science that is grandeur and riches for the spirit have been closed. I have seen that the law and doctrines that I gave to humanity in past times are today found hidden and have been substituted for by rites, outward worship and traditions. But you who recognize intimately that the essence of this word is the same that Israel received on Mount Sinai, and that the multitudes received from the lips of Jesus in the second era, shall be those who with your worship and your works teach that the divine law should not be forgotten, in order to comply with foolish traditions that do not benefit the Spirit. I have reminded you of the names of those I have sent, through whom you received messages, mandates, prophecies, and lessons. And so I have united in one single lesson the contents of all the lessons. Spiritualism is the heritance in which the three testaments are united in one single spiritual book. This doctrine, which, because it reveals the spiritual, is called spiritualist, is the road traced for man by which he will come to know, serve, and love his Creator. It is the book that teaches men to love the Father in their own fellow men. Spiritualism is a law that dictates what is good, pure, and perfect. The duty to respect this law is for everyone. Nonetheless, none are obliged to obey it, for each spirit enjoys the liberty of its will, so that its struggle and all its acts, on being judged, can be taken into account for their own merit. See then, that this doctrine is the flame of divine love that has illuminated and given warmth to all my children, from the first to the last. The relationship between spiritualism and the doctrine of Jesus Christ. The doctrine of spirituality is not a theory, it is a practical teaching, both for your life on earth and for your spirit's life. No other teaching exists that is more complete and perfect. It guided you before you arrived on earth. It will guide you during your journey on earth. And it will melt with your spirit when it returns to the spiritual world. It will not be I who take the liturgies and traditions from your worship services. It will be the spirit of man that, without realizing it, will rise above his old misconceptions, motivated by the need for greater light, to illuminate his path of evolution. Soon, men will understand that the only thing that they can present to God is the practice of love, and to say love is to say good, charity, wisdom, and justice. Spiritualism does not come to erase any of the words preached by Christ in that era. It could not be called spiritualism if it did so, for it would then be opposing truth. How could this word be set against that if it is the Master himself who speaks it? If you truly penetrate the meaning of this doctrine, you will see that my word of today is the explanation or clarification of what I said in that era. It is by way of them that the humanity of today and of the future are prepared to understand more than the generations of the past, and therefore to fulfill the law in a way that is purer, more elevated, and true. If you carefully observe your brothers during worship, you will see how they now look coldly on what was once the object of their adoration. It is because the spirit is awakening itself and seeks what can truly give it sustenance. And that is why I tell you that the external form of worship of this humanity is destined to disappear. In this book, which is simple and humble, but overflowing with divine light, men will find the clarification of all their doubts, and the fulfillment of the teachings that only in part were revealed in past times, as well as a clear and simple form for interpreting that which is hidden in the metaphoric language of the older text. He who after receiving this spiritual massive is persuaded of the truth of its contents and rises up to struggle against his materialism, idolatry, and fanaticism, cleansing these impurities from his understanding and his heart, will free his spirit, providing it with happiness and peace, because he finally is able to struggle to conquer the eternity that awaits him. But those that persist in their material worship, who are obstinate in loving the things of the world that do not believe in the development or evolution of the spirit, I tell you truly shall stay behind and weep when they come to understand their own backwardness and ignorance. Discussions about the new word. If to you my doctrine seems strange, in so far as you think that knowing me, you have never heard these words, I tell you that your surprise is the result of your negligence in penetrating the depths of what I revealed to you in times past. It is for that reason that this doctrine seems strange or new, when in reality this light has been always present in your life. My doctrine, in this, as in the second era, shall move humanity. The hypocrites will have to confront sincerity, falsity will let its mask fall, and the truth will shine forth. The truth shall prevail over the lie that envelopes this world. Man will be able to understand and recognize all that which encompasses reason and truth, but all that which he was obliged to believe without understanding he will reject, and therefore my doctrine will spread, because it gives forth the light that man need. A great part of this work falls to you, that of revealing to your brothers its beginning and its end. Humanity is hungry for my word, for my truth. Men yearn and clamor for the light to come to their understanding. They demand justice and await counsel. This is the decisive time. In truth, I tell you that many ideas, theories, and even dogmas that have been held as truths for centuries shall fall to the earth and be abandoned as false. Fanaticism and idolatry will be fought against and exterminated by those who were most involved and faithful to it. The teachings of God will be understood, their light, their content, and their essence will be comprehended and felt. The men of science, after a time of testing, during which they will suffer very great confusion, when in their spirits the light shines, and they hear the voice of their conscience, will discover that of which they had never dreamed. Again, I tell you, be vigilant, for in the time of the struggles of creeds and doctrines, of religions and sciences, many men, knowing that you do not carry books, will believe that the knowledge given them by their books will be the weapon by which they can defeat my new disciples. I have told you, disciples, that you shall have to look at the great religions and the small sects directly in the eye. But before neither should you have fear. The truth that I have entrusted to you is transparent. The word that I have taught you is clear and simple on its surface, but infinitely deep in its content, and they are powerful weapons with which you will struggle and win. And yet I tell you, there shall arise a people on the earth full of materialism and disbelief, to deny to you the right to call yourselves Israel, to deny your testimony of having received the new coming of the Messiah, and these people are the Jews. Have you not thought this? These people await in their bosom the arrival of their Messiah, their Savior, from whom they will receive justice, and who will place them once again over all the peoples of the earth. These people know that I have always come to them, and in this third era I shall say, why should God come to another people? But here are my teachings. The spiritualist people live unknown. The world does not know of your existence, and the great do not notice you. But the struggle between spiritualists and Christians, between spiritualists and Jews, approaches. That struggle is necessary for the establishment of my doctrine throughout humanity. Then shall the Old Testament be united in one single essence with the second and the third. To many, this appears impossible. To me, it is the most natural. It is just and perfect. The great book of true life. My word will continue written for all time. With it, you will form the book of the third era, the third testament, the final message from the Father. For in the three eras has God wielded his golden scribes to leave his wisdom to humanity. The reference is to those witnesses, to the teachings of the Lord, whose task was the recording of the teachings in shorthand or typewritten form. Moses was the first golden scribe. which the Father used to inscribe the inerasable letters in a book, the events of the first era. Moses was the golden scribe of Jehovah. Among the apostles and followers of the second era, Jesus had 4 scribes, who were Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These were the golden scribes of the Divine Master, and when the time arrived to unite the First Testament with the second with bindings of love, recognition, and spiritual progress, then one single book was formed. Now, in the third era, in which you have again my word, I have again named the golden scribes so that it may be written down. When the time arrives, you will form a single book, and this book, that of the third era, will, when the time is right, be united with the book of the second and first eras, and then, with the revelations, prophecies, and words of the 3 eras, the book of life will be formed for the enjoyment of all the spirits. Then you shall recognize that from the first word to the last, all has been fulfilled in truth and spirit, that all the prophecies were the future history that the Father revealed to humanity, for only God can write of events yet to be. When the prophets have spoken, it was not they, but God who did so through their conduit. I have prepared my new chosen one sufficiently, as had been Moses and the 4 disciples of the second era, so that my word is recorded with complete cleanliness, clarity, and truth, for it is for the generations of tomorrow, and if any would add to or remove anything from this book, I shall see to them. The Lord refers to the essence or lesson and not to the different wording. Now, my very beloved children, who shall care about this book that you are forming? None, in truth, but the moment shall come in which a humanity full of anxiety and of curiosity asks you for your book, and then it shall be unveiled, scrutinized and discussed. In that struggle of ideas, bands will arise, men of science, theologians, philosophers. To the nations will be carried the testimony of your word, and the book of wisdom, and all shall speak of my doctrine. That shall be the beginning of the new battle, the war of words, of thoughts, of ideas, and in the end, when all have recognized in truth and spirit that the great book of life was written by the Lord, they will share brotherhood and love each other, as is my will. Why was the word of Jehovah in the first time not sufficient to unite the world? And why did Jesus not achieve it in the second era? Why, in this time, has it not been sufficient that since 1866 I have been giving you my word, for nations to love one another and live in peace? It is necessary for the 3 books to form one single book, so that this word illuminates the universe. Then shall humanity be surrounded by this light, and the curse of Babel will be erased, for all men will read the great book of true life. All will practice the same doctrine and will love one another as children of God, in spirit and truth.